Well, thank you so much, Deb, and thank you to Pat and all of the board and all of the volunteers who are here today to be doing the work that you do all the time for people in need. So thank you very much for that. Can I begin in the Jandai language of my people, the Kondamuka people? Yura, Naru Babajabaru, Wanya Yura, Nyagurajan Jagajan Yagara Yura. So to acknowledge all of our ancestors and, of course, to acknowledge the first peoples of this country, the Yagara people. Can I, of course, acknowledge all of the special guests that are here, Deb, Pat, all the board members, M. James, who's here from Neighbourhood Centres Queensland, Devitt from our Queensland Community Alliance, and, of course, all of the volunteers who've taken time to be part of today's event. Well, we are here today as the Mount Gravatt Community Centre prepares Christmas hampers for community members and their families who need it the most. And we know that this is something that does happen every year, but this year it's even more important. I know that the work that this centre did during COVID was absolutely vital to be able to support people who were being isolated as a result of some of the very necessary restrictions that we were under at the time. But now, post-COVID, there's a different kind of need that's happening right across our community as we come to terms with the fallout from COVID and, of course, set the new normal, whatever that is for us. And as we try to get back to normal and find all of these new challenges that are ahead of us. But I do want to acknowledge neighbourhood community centres in particular who do an amazing job, not just here in Mount Gravatt, but right across Queensland. We have some 127, almost 128 running across the state, and that's why we've invested as a government very heavily in neighbourhood and community centres. But they play a very important role in what I'm announcing today. Today, I'm able to announce the release of our new, first of its kind, vision for the next 10 years with regards to the kinds of communities we want to live in, grow and, of course, show the rest of the world. So Communities 2032 is a strategy for the next 10 years. It is funded for an action plan right now as a result of the outcomes of the most recent budget. And that is quite a substantial amount of money that we've been able to secure and put into the system. Some $125 million in that space to be able to support neighbourhood and community centres and, of course, community work right across our state. But this vision is a 10-year vision for communities that support and empower every person to connect, participate, contribute and thrive. It guides the actions of our government to build the communities we want to live in and show to the world through the Brisbane 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games. Importantly, this particular strategy responds very strongly to the recommendations of the parliamentary inquiry into social isolation and loneliness. Something that has been absolutely groundbreaking in ensuring that we're directing our work to support those who are feeling isolated, who are feeling lonely, to be able to connect to others so that we remain a very strong and resilient community. I do want to acknowledge the local state member who's been very instrumental in all of that work and, of course, as the committee chair has been leading that parliamentary inquiry. I do also want to acknowledge the Mount Gravatt Community Centre. This is the home of the social prescription trial. It's called Ways to Wellness program. It really has been a leading light in the kinds of work that we want to be seeing across our state. There are some very important key themes of the strategy. Everything from being a resilient, supportive community through to being a very well-connected community. We know as Queenslanders that our communities have been hit by incredible challenges, not just through COVID, but of course through natural disasters, and our ability to bounce back is really about how we connect to each other. So this strategy really is about ensuring that we've got all of the right ingredients to support that continued sense of being a really strong community in Queensland. And today I also want to be able to announce that in terms of some of the funding with regards to social isolation and loneliness, that I'm announcing the new Communities Innovation Fund, It's a grants program that will support innovative responses to social isolation and loneliness. It is a committed $4 million over 4 years to that program. And I'm really encouraging all organisations to put forward some innovative ideas for new services, programs and approaches to address social isolation and loneliness. Those guidelines for the innovation grants are available on my department's website, and applications will be open in the new year. So I do encourage people to have a look at the guidelines and get ready for when those grants are open. But ladies and gentlemen, today is really a important milestone in this state. In terms of being able to create the vision for the next 10 years when it comes to the kinds of communities we want to build and support, that we want to be part of, and that we want to be able to show the rest of the world. I think anybody with children will know that you think about the kinds of communities that they will be living in over the next 10 years. How we make sure that people stay connected to each other and not separate. That we don't see radicalisation occurring in our community, that we find ways to be able to support each other to lift up. That's what this strategy does, and of course the action plans that go along with it give us that concrete actions to be able to deliver those services. Everything from the work that happens at community centres, which of course we've seen a record amount of funding now invested in our neighbourhood and community centres. It's the biggest uplift to base funding ever in the history of neighbourhood and community centres. And so that will go a long way in making sure that more of what you've seen today will continue on along with that very strong place-based approach to supporting communities to be well connected into the future. So very pleased to be here today to be able to announce this particular strategy, a 10-year vision, but also to announce the $4 million for our Communities Innovation Fund grant. So thank you.
Thank you, Minister. That's very exciting for us, for a government to have a 10-year plan. Like, as an organisation, we have a 3-year strategic plan. So it's innovative to be able to go 10 years out and look what the future's going to be for us and have funding available to be able to be innovative. It's exciting. Can I please invite Em, who is the CEO from Queensland Community... Oh, sorry, I always get it round the wrong way. Neighbourhood Centres Queensland. Sorry, Em.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here today to celebrate the launch of such an exciting plan. The vision that's held in that, combined with the really strategic actions that we're already seeing happening, combined with the level of collaboration and coordination that's happening across government, across communities, across the community services sector, it's just, it's just phenomenal. And it's very exciting to think about at the end of such a challenging year that we have taken the time, that there's been this proactive approach to really looking at what will it take to have stronger communities, what will it take to learn from what is currently happening, and how can we foster a stronger sense of community, a community with more resilience, a community where people have more ways to look out for each other. As someone who's worked in the neighbourhood centre for a long time, I think part of what's so exciting about neighbourhood and community centres is that sense of optimism that happens when you're working on the ground and see that strong willingness of people to participate, to contribute, to belong. We all want places where we feel safe. We all want to feel like what we do matters and that we have ways to create better communities. And I think the strategies in this plan and the vision in this plan really help us to create that and to really value that community-led, place-based response together with the human rights commitment, the commitment to equity and inclusion, the commitment to First Nations is just really exciting, and I'm really looking forward to, even as we try to imagine where will we be in 10 years' time, what does that look like, to have such a strong visionary piece to hold up and to look back to, I think is very exciting. So thank you very much, everybody, and thank you so much, Minister and everybody else for the creation of this plan.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Em. That concludes our formal component for today. We would like to invite you to stay back for morning tea, or afternoon tea now, lunch. A few nibbles if you'd like to stay and join us. Thank you. Okay, cool. Then we'll take questions in a minute, yeah.
Yeah, you don't need to stand. A lunch, yes. Do you want to stay, Em, in case they have a question for you? Yeah. 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 Just, is that all right? Right. Any questions?
So what will success look like in 10 years' time? Now, what are some of the things that hopefully we can achieve by then?
Yeah, well, certainly with regards to what came out of the parliamentary inquiry into social isolation and loneliness, there were some clear directions about ensuring that we put the right kinds of activities in place to support people right now. That's why the record investment in neighbourhood and community centres was so critical to get that infrastructure right. And of course, today's announcement in terms of our Communities Innovation Fund, that grant, really gives us an opportunity to look at some innovative ways to be able to find programs and solutions to draw people together. In 10 years' time, what we want to be able to show to the world, what we want to be able to connect to ourselves is a resilient community who've got better ways to be able to support each other, who of course find every possible way to be part of a community going forward. So really, that's what we want to be able to show to the rest of the world in 10 years' time.
So Minister, those grants are up to $50,000. What are some of the sort of ideas that you may have already heard of that people might apply for?
Yeah, well, certainly, what we're seeing here in terms of the social prescribing trial, that real sort of sense of being able to unpack particular issues, use that research base to be able to get that work done, to support people in a really meaningful way. That's the kind of stuff that we potentially might see as a result. But, we're seeing all kinds of things right across the state. That's why the neighbourhood and community centres, the funding of those has been so important, because that's where the real place-based work is happening. And place-based, really is about understanding the local community, what is required in that particular community. And it's different from one to the other. So that's why this grant's so important. It could be that it's about a mums and bubs type program that that hasn't happened before in a particular location. It could be about a 0 to 8 year old focus for a particular town. It could be about young people. It could be about older people. All of those things are available to look at through this grant.
So it could be, you're providing a car for visitation of elderly people. It could be about that sort of thing.
Maybe, but the criteria is pretty much very clear about the idea that we want to see these place-based programs, so it's a program of work to be able to support groups of people to connect to each other and to connect to the community.
Just another issue,
Yep.
if that's all right.
Yep.
The New South Wales Premier said today he's confirmed he wants a national gun reform response. And he's looking to Queensland to see what our state government has to say and the changes we want to make for consistency. What changes does the Queensland government want to see?
Yeah, well, obviously the Premier's already made comments with regards to this. She has said that she's very willing and wanting to be able to raise it at National Cabinet. I think it's something that does belong in a conversation at National Cabinet, as the Premier has said. And really, I look forward to what comes out of those conversations. But the Premier has been very clear that she'd be willing to raise that at National Cabinet, and I think that conversation is where we should be able to see those synergies, if possible.
And we also understand that when Nathaniel Trays crossed the border illegally last year, a formal police report was actually made. To your knowledge, did police investigate that?
I don't have any knowledge of that in particular, but obviously the police right now are looking at every part of what's happened recently. And I do want to send my deepest sympathies and condolences to those families. My own brother is a police officer, so I know that as a police officer, he's working through what that means for him as well and his family. And I know every police officer right across the state is feeling the same way. There's a town that's preparing for funerals right now and families that are preparing for funerals, and I think everybody is, their hearts are with them right now. Yeah.
There's a new cost report coming out tomorrow on the cost of living. family with 2 children, even if they have above average single income coming in, they're still hundreds of dollars a week in debt. Cost of living, and it's even worse for single low-income households. They're really in distress at the moment. Can you sort of run us through what the government's doing to address those cost of living and housing problems?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, cost of living, there's no doubt that we're feeling that right across this country. And of course, our Federal Treasurer has been preparing us for the fact that we'll see continued pressure with regards to cost of living. And that's having an impact right across all of our lives. That's why recently, as part of the outcomes report of our housing summit that the Premier hosted, we saw some $56 million committed to not just housing supply, but importantly and predominantly out of that funding, housing support. So money to be able to keep people in the houses that they currently have, so support with regards to private tenancy, and of course money for emergency relief. So recently, as a result of that, we doubled the amount of money for some of those food relief services that are available, whether that be Food Bank or Oz Harvest, some of whom have provided the food that's being packed right here today for hampers for families who are in need in this community. So that commitment, along with some of the innovative work that we've announced as a result of today's strategy and of course the funding grant, along with the fact that we have in many cases seen a huge amount of money invested into neighbourhood and community centres so that those workers can be there to support people through the various different things that are available to those who might need it right now.
I've seen some allegation from a whistleblower in this morning's paper around witness coaching in Queensland Health. Do you know if there's going to be some sort of investigation to follow that up?
Yeah, well, certainly the Health Minister spoke at length about this case when it was first revealed, and I'll leave that to the Health Minister to be able to continue that work.
I've also seen the YouGov poll out this morning saying that 50% of Queenslanders aren't confident that they'd be able to get an ambulance within 15 minutes. Are people losing faith in the health system?
Look, I think what we're seeing, not just in Queensland but right across the country, is incredible stress on our health system. Right now, we've got more than 500 beds being occupied by people with COVID. We've got people who are in our hospital beds who should be in aged care. This continues to be a lot of incredible stress on our system. So it's no surprise that we're seeing some of these kinds of results. But that is why we've seen a record investment from this government to build more capacity right across Queensland and all of our hospital systems and our health system. A really important investment given the kinds of stresses that we're seeing as a result of COVID and other aspects. Anything else? Okay. Thanks, guys.